He's underwater.
Good day to you all, ladies and gentlemen, and it's been a pretty extraordinary 24 hours for Blizzard and for Shadowlands, giving us everything we hoped to see. Let's get straight into the big news, is that Torghast has had all timer-related restrictions and debuffs removed. They are gone. What we were openly crying out for has happened. So let me get into the details and then we'll talk about it. There's a lot of new anima powers. All classes are now available for Torghast, so we can get our testing done on the Paladin and the Rogue.
You guys want it a little bit louder? Okay, I can turn it up a bit more.
Waiting to do quite vehemently. But most importantly, the Torments update.
That should be fine.
This update, Torments no longer scale with time. Torments are now additional challenges based on floor types you have encountered on that run. Developers' notes from
which is cool. I like the idea that the torments actually are tied into the type of run. So like if you get like the fire map, then you have like the torment that does damage to you. That's cool because it actually matches and it's not just some arbitrary thing. It's kind of like the problem with like Mythic Plus where like all the different affixes are the same for every single dungeon.
We heard your feedback that torments were adding too much time pressure. The jailer may still torment you on higher levels of Torghast, but torments.
There it is. On higher levels of Torghast. Are they taking what I said? I feel like they kind of are. Like that's exactly what I said. That's what I wanted them to do. That's fucking awesome, man. Holy shit.
Will no longer scale with time. So they then give some examples, is that if you are unaware, Torghast is broken down into separate themes. There's about 6 of them now, with more being added regularly, and more to be added, of course, over the course of Shadowlands. And now, when you go into a certain area, a certain theme, you'll do 6 levels of that theme. So one might be the Cold Heart Interstitia, another might be the Soul Forge, one is fire-themed, another may be themed around ghostly enemies that drop pools on the floor. Those will come with it at the higher levels, a debuff that grows as you move up through the floors, such as the enemies becoming stronger, having more health, etc. This is a good thing, and we'll come to that in a second.
Yeah.
It is not based on time. It doesn't matter how long you spent on any floor. It will simply go up
23
as you increase your duration. As you go up through floors, you will gain an extra 1 of these multipliers. They will now be constant, so as you go higher and higher and higher, you will maintain these debuffs, even if you've moved into a different theme. The developers' notes on this are these changes. The changes were inspired by feedback from the torments that reduce your power feel worse than torments that affect your enemies. As always, we will continue to tune and keep a close eye on difficulty. So that is the removal of things that lowered your damage, lowered your HP, or made you physically vulnerable.
Thank God. Thank fucking God. Because if they have an infinitely scaling system, there's no reason why they have to punish the players for using it, which is basically what happens with Mythic Plus. What is really going to be the difference if Mythic Plus had positive affixes versus negative affixes? If it's a completely scaled system that Blizzard creates that all players are interacting with equally and everybody has the same positive affixes, it would just make Mythic Plus more fun to do. As I said, Mythic Plus, it's like being led into the basement, and you know the lights are very dim, and they turn them on, and it's a bunch of red velvet walls with dildos on each wall, and the guy, he says to you, pick 2. That's what Mythic Plus is right now, and what they need to do is make it fun to do Mythic Plus. In my opinion, the only fun affix is teaming, because you get to do big AoE pulls. That's it. How is this punishment? Well, it shouldn't be punishment or anything like that. But that sounds like fun, though. Okay, all right. Okay.
Those are the changes they've made there. They've also restructured, and we're starting to see the formation of how this will look in the live version of Torghast, which we still do not have. So, again, always subject to change.
Yeah, obviously.
We now have the 2 separate modes that will be for Torghast. Of course, there is the singular mode, which is designed to get your power gain. So even if you don't like Torghast, Torghast is going to be a mandatory piece of content. This is where you're going to get your legendary stuff. This will be done through 2 set block runs, is what they call them, of which we...
I think Torghast, realistically, you know, you hear mandatory content, and nobody likes mandatory fun. You know what I mean? But I think if they're going to add this, and if they want people to do something, they have to incentivize it. And if they don't incentivize it, people are just not going to do it. That's all there really is to it.
We have 6 total at the moment. These will have 2 available each week, and similar to Visions, they will cycle every week into different ones. Currently on the alpha, we can see the different ones daily. These will be where you go to do the quest runs. They're relatively easy. They can be done very, very quickly.
Oh, we've done these.
They will get you done.
Yeah, we've done these.
Way. They have added difficulty
choices
to these, so we can maybe expect that in the live version, if you do say easy mode, you will get the least amount of legendary rewards. If you do say the heroic mode, you'll get the most amount of legendary rewards,
which makes sense
that week. But that is for that week. The second mode is the Twisting Corridors. This is the quote-unquote endless mode. We do know that Blizzard is very, very, very much thinking that there will be a natural cutoff. That is the end of your Torghast run at some point. They will not allow it to infinitely scale. Mainly, I imagine, because the sheer numbers and damage that people can produce if they go to, say, floor 100 will be just dangerous for the game, because it
whatever, dude. That shit was fucking awesome. Like, what the fuck ever, man. Having a weekly cycle is bad. I don't know about having it be bad. I think that's cool. They had certain rewards for Torghast. Like, it is true that, like, at the point where you can kill the Terragru, that's too powerful. Like, it's supposed to not even be killable, and players are able to one-shot it. That's too much. So I don't know how Blizzard's going to be able to fix that, but I do like the idea of Torghast being infinite. But obviously, I don't know if that's really going to work with how much the character's power scales.
Generating so many huge, enormous numbers. We're already
there's
way
that
past
too.
the millions of DPS. From when we managed to test these higher floors.
Yep.
The Twisting Corridors will, of course, be completely randomized. You'll do that section of 6 levels based on the theme you are in, and then when you go to, say, floor 7, a new set of 6 levels based on a different theme will appear. Then when you go to floor 13, same again, and it will continue to rock up until Blizzard decides when they think that Torghast run should end. Currently, that is after 18 floors, but that is purely for testing purposes as they work out the difficulty.
Okay.
So some notes on this.
That's
Players
good.
who seek legendary materials alone can do so in Torghast cell blocks and can earn more materials by climbing higher. Players who are looking for cosmetics or simply want to play without pressure can do so in the Twisting Corridors. So the block mode is the mandatory bit. That's the bit you'll want to do on your characters to get your legendary stuff.
Yeah.
The Twisting Corridors, purely cosmetic, have fun, have wild time, way more accessible. Go, 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 enjoy yourselves, play alts, do whatever you want to do.
What do you guys think about that? I think having the 2 different modes is the smartest thing to do. Yeah, it's probably the smartest way for them to handle it is to just have 2 different modes.
So let's have a little thought about this. One, this is absolutely everything we asked for. The idea of trying to time limit players, this idea of degenerate play being a problem in Torghast was widely outspoken by the people who had tested it heavily as being a stupid idea. Made no sense, and there was actually in direct conflict with how Torghast works. There was a lot of people...
I also want to say, like, you know, we complain about Blizzard all the time. We complain about Blizzard constantly. But you know what? They actually did something right here. They listened to what the players wanted, and they gave the players what they wanted. Good job, Blizzard. Like, good job, Blizzard. Like, that's great. Like, thank you, Blizzard. Unironically, thank you, Blizzard. Good job.
Who did support the idea of timers based on not playing Torghast. We saw lots of suggestions such as limiting Bloodlust. That goes against everything that mages and shamans do inside Torghast. A lot of their abilities and anime powers are based around essentially almost getting entirely permanent bloodlust, which the shamans can do, and insane almost, and including surrendered to madness bloodlust that the mages can do. I don't know how that works. Severely limiting them, and actually not a problem. The system was already designed around the idea of having permanent bloodlust.
Yeah,
so
it scales.
The idea is that
it scales like
bloodlust and heroism
That's
would be
completely
a problem
fine.
made no sense. The idea of waiting for cooldowns as well doesn't really make much sense either.
It sucks.
If players want to do that, they can do that. But again, a lot of Torghast revolves around you kind of having your cooldowns up all the time. It's part of the power creep that happens inside there and is part of the fun of being inside
That's
there.
actually a really good
having
point,
Avatar up permanently. I've shown on the channel having Earth Elemental up permanently while demolishing enemies with Earthquake. This is all the stuff that happens in there. Trying to time restrict it actually only affects players who are having a more difficult and more engaging start to a run.
Yeah,
which
that's
in
the
and of
hardest
itself
part.
is part of the fun of Torghast. You can have a difficult start, and overcoming that challenge is great. What you don't want to feel is that you're
start
being
at
overly
425
punished because the random nature of the powers you get, the random nature of the layouts you get, gave you an unfavorable start, and for some reason you're being extra punished for that. None of the timer restrictions for Torghast made any sense whatsoever, and I am so happy to Blizzard for actually listening to that, understanding where we were coming from, and saying this really doesn't make sense, it has no place inside Torghast, and actually doing something about it. I mentioned that the new Torment...
There it is. There it fucking is, boys. Blizzard is listening. No, they're actually listening. Like, this is substantial and meaningful. I see us getting boring quick. You think Torghast will get boring quickly? You know what? I kind of agree. I think that what they need to do is they need to have more large-scale random events inside of Torghast that makes it more dynamic. I think that the only reason that it won't get boring for some certain players is that they'll like playing their character inside of Torghast because of how overpowered they feel. That's going to be one of the main draws to Torghast.
I do wish they would have changed the name, because I know many in the community go Torments equals bad. Try to forget everything you knew about Torments and look at them this way. Is actually a good thing. One of the Torghast, as we did mention a couple of weeks ago when this Torments idea came into the alpha, we did mention that Torghast does have problems. It does have things that need working on. Most importantly is that the player's power increase does not match up with the enemy's power increase. And if you can get past
the player
first,
outscales
say,
everything.
3 floors, you're generally so powerful by that point.
It doesn't matter.
That you overwhelm Torghast and you become unstoppable and you become a god. So you have this rather engaging, interesting experience for the first 3 floors. After that, it becomes about how powerful you can get, because no longer does Torghast really pose a threat.
That's what happened with like the hard mode one, is that once I got through like the first 5 or 10 levels, like after I got through the first boss, and by the time I got to the second boss, it was just a joke. It was just a fucking joke. Like, we would just go through there and pull everything. I'd never die, and there was like no difficulty. I think that like whenever I was watching Torghast, the funnest part for me to watch is the first like 3 floors that somebody did on the alpha, because that's where they really had to use everything their character had. They had to plan everything like perfectly, and they couldn't make any fucking mistakes. That was the funnest, the more funnest it can be. And that's what I mean to say. And so, yes, obviously, it's definitely the funnest, 100%.
Some of the bosses still do, but for the remainder of the floors, you're kind of starting to sweep them, and it's a snowballing effect. So 4th floor, you're going faster. 5th floor, you're going faster. And by the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th floors, you're really starting to steamroll your way through Torghast. So this is actually a good thing to try and keep the enemies engaging, keep them interesting, keep them
make
doing
it matter.
something. There's still far more work to do there. We have done testing today, and you still very quickly do overwhelm Torghast, even with the Torments. They have not solved that solution yet, but that is the correct development direction to be going in.
Yeah, I don't know how to make it actually hard.
The focus should be entirely on maintaining an engaging experience without nullifying your power gains. What we don't want is you become super powerful, but the enemies are also super powerful, so you might as well still be on floor 1. We don't want that either. What we want is additional challenges, things that make us think about what we're doing and really engage us. They've actually...
you know what I think they should add with Torghast? Maybe this is not what you guys would want to see, but as somebody who grew up playing Super Mario and like other platform games and isometric games and Super Nintendo, is I want to see more puzzles and things that players have to overcome in the higher levels of Torghast. Things kind of like the moving spears thing, and things like the how it puts the spikes up and like you have to move in a certain order. Like, that would be really cool, okay? Like, Sen's Fortress? Yeah, Sen's Fortress. Fucking Castlevania, man. Like, just Castlevania type shit. And then on top of that, I think what they need to do, instead of just scaling up the mob health, they need to give the mobs new abilities that do more damage. And that's what, in my opinion, would be more fun. PoE lab puzzles in WoW? Oh, fuck, dude. Imagine a PoE lab puzzle in WoW. What the fuck, dude? That's actually, that's actually something I hope Blizzard looks at. They look at what is the lab, right? What is the Eternal Labyrinth or whatever, and look at how the different things like play out. You have the keys, you have killing Argus, you have, getting the different, the gargoyle stuff. Like, that kind of stuff is fucking awesome, man. People would rage? No, they wouldn't. I think that it'd actually be fun.
They had great success with the trap rooms and new trap floors.
Fuck yes,
that
dude.
they built into Torghast, which have basically no enemies at all, but entirely decided on traps that are going on inside the floor.
That's awesome.
With many of them, from swinging blades to burning floors to laser grids. Those have been very, very successful, and I hope to see them really up their ante. I imagine at this point, Blizzard's probably struggling for development time on just how far and how crazy they can go with Torghast. I know many of us have spoke out about having boss rush mode, really crazy bosses. Should you be having a successful run where you are dominating Torghast, that unlocks further difficult challenges that are only accessible that way, because even the most casual players will access that at some point.
Imagine if you kill a boss in Torghast, and if you kill the boss in less than 30 seconds or a minute, the boss dies, and like a burning portal comes out of the boss's corpse, and it takes you into like a further, like a Hellfire version of the same boss, with improved mechanics and abilities. And like going through the portal just resets all your CDs, so you can just fight them right after that. That would be fucking badass, dude. Like, at the Cal level? Yes, yeah, at the Cal level. And so time pressure? Yeah, time pressure to kill the boss in time so you can unlock the hard mode of the boss. I don't think that time pressure is a bad thing fundamentally. I think making a timed run is bad, but having a timed kill on a boss is not bad. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like timed kills on bosses make you plan and prepare better, and it makes it more interesting. And should only be used sparingly? Yeah, exactly. Or like, imagine that like you had, like, let's say you go to the next floor, you kill the boss, and you go to the next floor, and there's like a fucking stairway down to below. Instead of going up, you go down, and you fight basically a Terragru, but it has like different abilities, and it's like really hard to kill, and like the room is like super dark. So you'd have to have some kind of like like a light source, and I don't know, like Vault of the Wardens or something like that. Like, there's 1,000 different ways that they could do some kind of badass shit with Torghast. I would love to see that. Dynamic mechanical scaling, yeah, exactly. And upside down tower, tweet it out. I mean, maybe I should tweet something like that out. Like, imagine if you had, for example, like, let me think of a boss that would make sense. Let's say you have like a dragon boss, and you have like the uber mode of the dragon boss. And, she has like 3 different phases, and she does different abilities. There's ads, and Blizzard just goes all out. Like, make it something that has the same level of difficulty as the Mage Tower. So, like, players actually want to try and go after these bosses, but they're just incredibly difficult to kill. And they have all kinds of one-shot mechanics and things like that you have to do. And, like, the higher up that you go in Torghast, the more difficult the bosses are. So it's not like you just start with the easy ones, or you hope that you get an easy one like higher up. Like, the harder bosses spawn afterwards. Make it a really rare chance to spawn a Hellfire portal, like 1%. No, I think it should be something that you can trigger if you're really good. I don't like having chances. I think that's silly. I want it to be something you can plan for and go after. Like a 5-mask vision mechanics? Yeah, 5-mask vision mechanics. Yeah, have something kind of like Sanity, but not having... I don't want a secondary resource bar that you can lose, but just make mechanics that are just extremely strong that will kill you super fast. Yeah, just give bosses corruption? I don't know about that. I don't want to have like a soft and rage thing like that.
Very similar to what other roguelike adventures do, is reward you for being super powerful by providing you with an even greater challenge to overcome. Things like that. And also affixes and challenge modes that may be preset.
Fuck yeah.
That allow classes to compete against each other on a predetermined set of floors, predetermined set of powers, or restrictions.
Seeded runs. So what Preach is saying here is seeded runs. A seeded run is basically, if you have 2 runs, you can go into like a PTR, and both players enter the run, and the run is exactly the same for both players. It has the same enemies, the same anima powers, the same everything. I think that's good. If they want Torghast to be competitive, which I think it can be competitive, they have to have seeded runs. There is no way that you can't have a seeded run. The only way that I think that you could not have a seeded run and still have it be like remotely competitive is if you were doing a 5-man. Because obviously, like, then it would be spread out more and you could kind of like balance out the RNG. I need to take a piss, guys. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. And I was thinking about something while I was taking a piss and I wanted to say this. So number one is that even if you didn't have the seeded runs, it would not be competitive fundamentally unless you had seeded runs, but it would be more fair if you had 5 people, but it would still be bad. I think that seeded runs are essential to having competition with Torghast.
To see who can be good for that month or good for that week, providing some internal server challenges amongst people just to have fun inside there. Torghast is quite literally a limitless, endless possibility in terms of creativity and fun that Blizzard can put into the game. I imagine at this point they weren't prepared for how overwhelmingly positive the reception would be, let alone that all we said with Torghast as feedback is more. And at some point they're like, okay, we do need to make the actual game. So I imagine that's kind of where they're at. And I would hope to get a further interview with Blizzard to see exactly where their head is at regarding Torghast. But this is so wonderful to see. On that note then, the Fire Mages. So during our last interview with Blizzard with Morgan Day.
Oh yeah, we saw this yesterday.
So many thousands of you inundated us with
look at
questions
this
about
shit.
your classes specifically. And it basically encompassed every single class and spec in the game. I decided that the focus should be on mages and shadow priests, as we do consider them to be some of the worst off so far in Shadowlands in terms of development. I really recommend you check our quick looks out, and we're also going to be revisiting that now. More class changes are coming in, so do pay attention for updates regarding certain classes as class changes are made. But one in particular was the Fire Mages. The Fire Mages...
Here's why they should have added Phoenix Flames back into the game. I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of all this mechanics bullshit and just say this. It's because it looks cool. You use Phoenix Flames, it looks fucking cool. That's what matters. Like, you need to feel like a badass whenever you're playing your character. That's what makes a difference. Like, you do it, you shoot in the fucking asses of Alar. That's cool.
Had quite an interesting change from BFA into Shadowlands is that Ignite will no longer naturally spread, and Blizzard's first suggestion with this was to make Fire Blast the spell you fire, and that will cause Ignite to spread to targets around the target that you Fire Blasted. Big obvious problem with that, of course, is that Fire Blast is integral to Fire Mage gameplay, is how they work. They fundamentally
you have to make a
need
decision.
That spell
it's not really a fun decision to make
in order to allow the spec to function. So giving a secondary use to Fire Blast isn't really feasible without crippling the spec, and that is the situation we were in.
Right.
So Blizzard have listened. They have listened once again, and Phoenix Flames will be returning to the base toolkit of the Fire Mage, very similar to Legion. The Phoenix Flames is back. Phoenix Flames...
Anytime they say something is going to be very similar to Legion in terms of the way that a class plays, I'm very happy. Fury needs Odin's Fury back in the spec. I actually don't think that Fury needs Odin's Fury. I don't think that it does. Why would Fury need it? Like, Odin's Fury is just a big whirlwind. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think if they want to bring Odin's Fury back into the game, just build it into Wrecking Ball as the fucking talent. That's what I would rather them do. Just build it into Wrecking Ball. I think if you want to give Fury something, give them Bladestorm as baseline. That's what I'd like to see.
Will be returning to the base toolkit, and now will have that role of spreading Ignite. They are still maintaining to not have Ignite spread naturally. Now Phoenix Flames will be the spell that you fire off in order to allow Ignite to spread. It still works with Hot Streak, so you can still use it in your combustion, and actually provides some interesting gameplay elements here. You can either save up your charges of Phoenix Flames for that combustion, or you want to make sure, I should say, that you have a Phoenix Flames for the end of your combustion in order to spread that powerful Ignite you've generated with combustion. You also have the choice to try and use Phoenix Flames on a more regular basis to spread your normal Ignite outside of combustion.
Man, look at that. You're going to tell me, like, look how fucking badass that looks.
Also have the choice to try and use Phoenix Flames on a more regular...
Look at that. See, he's shooting a fucking bird at him.
...basis.
That's fucking badass. Like, if you do that, you feel like you're like an X-Man or something. That's fucking awesome. That's what we want to see in the game. Yeah, you feel like you're a goddamn lizard.
Torghast is to spread your normal ignite outside of combustion. So you have choices to make of how do I hold on to these charges? Do I want to use a charge here? Do I perhaps want to save them? All this kind of stuff has come into the game. Is this good or bad? Is still yet to be seen on that side, but overwhelmingly, this is good. Phoenix Flames returning to the toolkit as a base ability, good. Having interaction during combustion, good. Having it back, overwhelmingly good. Is it ideal? That still is yet to be seen. We did have Ice, long-term mage, many years of mage gameplay at the highest level, testing it today. He was and ahhing is that we're almost back to a Legion mage, which many fire mages would like to see.
Even I like playing Legion mage.
It feels like a more complete spec.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Got this little awkwardness with spreading the ignite, which might just be a case of getting used to it, and it'll be fine. I'm certainly not going to poo-poo it just yet. So those are the two big updates we've had today. Blizzard listening again to the community, making it clear. And this is a dramatic change. If this was Blizzard of 2 years ago, I would have expected my Torghast feedback and the feedback of others regarding Torments to go ignored.
Well, basically, Blizzard used to have, this is the way it's been going ever since Shadowlands, is that Blizzard did have a feedback, they had a feedback suggestion box, except for the problem is it looked like this. And so now, actually, Blizzard's taking it a little bit more seriously, and they're trying to respond and give people what they want, which is great. I'm very happy to see this.
With Blizzard being relatively stubborn in many occasions with sticking to their guns, saying, no, we feel this is degenerate gameplay in their words, and we're going to stick to it. And that is not what we have seen this day. This is pretty goddamn awesome, and I'm really so happy.
Maybe the players actually do know what
Blizzard
they want.
Is doing here. Thank you so much for listening, guys. We'll keep you updated with any more news as it happens. Be good. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I feel like this is just a universally good video. I like this one a lot. I feel like everything about this made sense. I saw changes earlier today and immediately thought of Preach. Thank God I have so much hope for this expansion. Strange thing lately. A floor entirely designed on traps. Okay. I've given Blizzard a lot of crap for BFA and previous to that for WoD, but absolutely love them for the 180 they're pulling for the alpha stuff. I just really hope that they make Shadowlands good and we can actually start having a better coordination between like the players and the developers, because I feel like there's just always been like a conflict between the players and the developers, and that's the last thing that you really want to see. I think the players and the developers should be working together, not against each other, and that's the way that it seemed. That was unexpected. I wouldn't really say it's unexpected, but it's unlikely. I was definitely like that. I'm still very much on Team Skeptic after BFA and 8.3, just given how awful they are, but you'd have to be a rotten apple not to appreciate the steps in the right direction. A few more of them, like an overhaul of the Covenant system, and I might actually be cautiously optimistic. I think that's pretty much the way that I feel too. Yeah, that's great. Now for GCD and Master Looter. I think that GCD, as long as they build in, like, GCD is a problem that I think Blizzard can they can reconcile the GCD change with the players by making the abilities that you have to use on GCD feel better to use. Now, it's going to be hard for them to do, but overall, I think that they can reconcile that. Now, with Master Looter, why has Blizzard not brought back Master Looter? I mean, there's the obvious reason, which is go look at classic WoW subreddit's top posts, and that's why they didn't bring back Master Looter. But I think also, like, giving people the ability to decide who gets gear in a raid, I think it's like a philosophy thing that Blizzard has, is that they feel like if you participate in a boss kill, you've earned the right to get the gear from the boss. And I think that anybody who actually has been in a progression raiding guild and has done this for like multiple expansions and multiple guilds knows that's not actually true. There are tons of people in these progression guilds that do not pull their own fucking weight. They don't do what they're supposed to do, and they're just clowns. Rewarding players that don't deserve rewards does not make the game better. It makes it worse, because everybody else who does deserve the reward feels worse because they're not getting it.